Hello, psychologist Yulia Latunenko is with you. Today we will talk about how to become a conscious person. Today I will name the directions in which you need to work on yourself. If you are visiting my channel for the first time, please subscribe. There is a lot of interesting information about psychology here, in our native, beautiful Ukrainian language. And don't forget to like this video. This is also very valuable for my channel to grow and be useful to many of our compatriots. So let's begin. I believe that the very first task a person must accomplish to become conscious is to learn to distinguish and differentiate their own feelings. You all know that there are 7 basic feelings. In different classifications, there can be 4, 10, or 7. That is, I use a classification in which there are 7 basic feelings. What are feelings, and how do they differ from emotions? Even simpler animals have emotions, but they are very basic. Anger, fear. These are emotions on an instinctive level. We know that pets can even feel joy expressing the emotion of happiness. But how does a human differ from an animal? By the fact that a human can be aware of their emotions. And when an emotion is realized, then we talk about feelings. 7 basic feelings. I have mentioned them many times, not in my video, but I will repeat them for you once more. They are fear, anger, shame, guilt, joy, sadness, and interest. Or we also refer to interest as a surprise. That's the kind of emotion there is. You see, only 2 emotions are positive, but interest and or surprise can have both a positive and a negative sign. So there is only one positive feeling, while the rest are negative feelings. So we need to learn to distinguish these feelings, because normally a 7-year-old child should already be able to differentiate their own feelings from those of the person next to them. This is how emotional intelligence is formed. But we all know the terrible state of parenting, where parents often do not take an interest in developmental psychology, do not understand how to raise a child, and most often raise them like learning to roller skate wherever it leads, wherever they fall. This is such a spontaneous process. Therefore, most people do not know how to distinguish what specific feeling they are experiencing at any given moment. An adult conscious person is someone who, at the moment they feel something, can identify that feeling in the place where they felt it, towards the person they felt it for, and can verbalize, that is, express in words, their feelings. The first thing we need to do is learn to distinguish these feelings. I suggest for this purpose to hang paper notes on the wall where all these 7 basic feelings are written with a marker. And when you feel some discomfort in your body or soul, you approach this wall and see which feeling best corresponds to your state. In this way, you practice how to distinguish the feelings. At the end, I will tell you 2 more life hacks from me that will help you be more conscious. But we are moving on. So the second task I propose to solve, which is on the path of developing your consciousness, is to be able to understand your need, to identify it, the one you have at the moment. For this, you should know Maslow's pyramid, at the very least Maslow's. The level of basic feelings is safety, it's food, water, some physiological needs, it's sleep. The second level according to Maslow's pyramid, is attention and love. The third level is recognition and approval. The fourth level is power, control, and the pinnacle of needs is self-realization. And when a person's lower needs are unmet, they cannot move forward and satisfy their higher needs. Therefore, one must learn to satisfy needs from the lower level first, become aware of them, and understand which need is unmet at the moment. And we know that if a negative feeling arises, such as fear, anger, shame, or guilt, it means that some need is unmet at that moment. You need to understand this and only then take action. Because the next step you need to take is to stop being reactive. That is, before doing anything or reacting to an external stimulus, you need to understand which of the 7 basic feelings and which need from the 5 levels of Maslow's hierarchy is involved. Next, where you need to move in your development is to learn to ask yourself uncomfortable questions, because our brain often deceives us. Why do people who undergo psychotherapy become more aware? Because initially it is the psychotherapist or psychologist who asks the uncomfortable questions. Then this ability gradually develops in the person, and they seemingly use this image of the psychotherapist internally to ask themselves, that level of psychotherapeutic questions. And very often these questions are quite uncomfortable, and very often the answers to these questions are quite unpleasant, because we become aware of our imperfections. We become aware of our non-ideal nature. People who avoid asking themselves uncomfortable questions and know how to justify themselves in any situation, explain why they acted that way, so as not to lose face, so as not to lose self-esteem. It can be just, a labyrinth, wandering through the traps of one's own mind. Therefore, the ability to ask oneself a therapeutic question is a very cool thing for raising awareness. And I will still explain a little what uncomfortable questions are. I will give you a few examples that you can use. Ask yourself questions of this kind. Why am I doing this right now? What will happen if I don't do this? What will happen if I continue doing this? What need of mine is unmet and leads to certain actions? Can I take responsibility later for my choices and decisions? When I do or say something, what is the motive? What impulse or what motivation do I have to do or say this? What do I really want from this person? What do I expect from this person? And does this person owe me what I expect? And what will happen if I stop expecting certain actions, certain resources from a person? Or there are many people who are accustomed to self-sacrifice, doing something for someone and expecting them to give something back, but they don't. Maybe it's just a simple reason they can't give back that much. And then you need to ask yourself, am I doing all this sincerely? Or am I expecting, for example, that I do something, invest myself, and the person will give something back to me? That is, some kind of commerce has already happened in my mind, but the person knows nothing about it. So you need to learn to ask yourself such questions and many other questions. And a couple of life hacks from me, which I promised you at the beginning of my video. This is the observer technique. That is, to be more conscious, you need to train this inner observer. That is, it's not exactly an inner observer. It's an imaginary image of yourself that you sort of dissociate from and imagine that there is another you here. And as if this observer the image of you is watching you in a particular situation. Well, for example, you are talking to someone, but you imagine that there is another person nearby who is observing you and narrating in your head what is happening. For instance, oh, I'm starting to argue now. This is causing me tension. Why am I arguing with this person right now? What is this argument giving me? What need is it fulfilling? Maybe I want to be right. Maybe I want to be smarter. And why do I need this competition? Or, for example, this observer watches what is happening in contact with another person and suggests to you, look, right now you're being provoked into a conflict. Right now, they're manipulating your sense of guilt. Look, right now, they're playing on your pity. Don't fall for it. That is the ability to observe yourself as if from the outside, to distance yourself a little and name it in your head while being in contact with a person or a group of people. This is just a really great technique that will help you exhibit more situational awareness. Well, and be another life hack. I have already mentioned it a little in some of my videos. These are your personal boundaries. You must learn to feel your boundaries in any situation. And in order to feel your boundaries, you need to know what can be done with you and what absolutely cannot be done by anyone under any circumstances. Therefore, for this, I suggest writing a blacklist. This will be a list, a special personal list of things that no one ever has the right to do with you under any circumstances. For example, what might be on this list? No one can yell at me, no one can hit me, no one can manipulate me, no one can criticize or devalue me. Well, when they say there is healthy criticism, there is healthy criticism. But yes, there is this healthy criticism, but when we talk about interpersonal relationships, close relationships, for example, in a couple between a man and a woman, or, well, there can be different combinations of couples. We say that. So criticism actually diminishes a person. This is the devaluation of a person. And if there is a lot of this criticism in close relationships, then this criticism destroys the relationship. And we can replace this criticism with 3 options. This is to ask the person not to do something or to do something, because under criticism lies an unmet need. For example, self-esteem has dropped, right? And a person starts criticizing another person to boost their own self-esteem. So it's necessary to understand this and stop it. Therefore, the 3 options that replace criticism are requests. Simply ask not to do something or ask to do it in a different way. Help. If you don't like that, I'm doing something wrong, then just do it instead of me. Help me. And the 3rd option is to ask the person if you can give advice or offer some idea for improving the matter that seems insufficient to you. Things like that. But this blacklist is something that no one should ever do to you. You should write it down and keep it somewhere close to you. For example, near your computer desk where you often are, you can glance at this list and understand what happened at any given moment. If you see any elements from your blacklist, you can tell the person that this is not acceptable with you. And if the person hears you the first time, doesn't need to be told again, and no longer crosses boundaries, it means that your interpersonal relationships are developing constructively in a constructive manner. But I slightly digressed from the topic of expanding awareness. I suggest you try to incorporate all these things that I have listed in this video into your life.